Hey everyone, today I'll be demonstrating the Docker Layout add-on for Blender. This add-on is useful for creating custom menus. You can generate buttons within inside the Docker and move it around your 3D viewport to where you like. And this will allow you to run customized code within inside of the Blender environment. And you can utilize many features such as code within your text files, right-clicking and copying a context of a button to paste into the Docker. So without further ado, I will go into the preference for the add-on and demonstrate the preference settings first, and then I will kick on with the rest of the tutorial. So opening up the Docker preference panel, you can customize and change the settings of the text, the colors of the docking panel itself. So if you had a different theme in mind, you can change this to your liking. You can also change the header area, which is the bottom area of the Docker, and the highlights for the colors. So this is what you'll see on the button shortly. There's the accent as well, and then there's some padding that you can use to change the buttons once they appear. Both vertical and horizontal layout, which you'll see in a second. And then the rest of the panel is designed to replicate the M panel. So if I open the M panel here, you can see we just don't have the preference settings for the text and the look and feel and style of the Docker itself. That's all hidden away up here. So I'm going to import a file that I'll be shipping with the add-on. It's a demo JSON file. You can export and import your setup. So if you add buttons, you're able to export at any time. And what the export allows you to do, if I just come over here, is when you export the JSON file, it will contain all of your buttons. When you're importing, you can merge. So if you have two different files with different sets of buttons, and none of these will be overridden, they will stay in there, and your import will just add to the list. Or you can import and replace all of your current items. So if you wanted to just clean file, you can bring that straight in. We have some other options. I'm just going to close the M panel now. We have some other options here. So you can vertical, as I said, or horizontal, apply the dock, and you can move it to where you like. You can lock the position of the dock. So if you, didn't want it to move within your 3D viewport, you can keep as is without, manually dragging. This is designed as well so that when you start to hit, say, 90% of your screen height and you have more buttons, the buttons will automatically overlap onto the next section here. So if I just quickly add a load of blanks just to demonstrate this, what you'll see is it starts to populate on a new row, so it doesn't go out the top of your screen, and they're always visible. Same with when you're vertical or horizontal aligned. So I'm just going to quickly remove these buttons that we've added, keeping our current buttons in place. Okay, so each of these represents some code. These buttons can, as I mentioned, generate code from either a text file, or you can copy and paste this directly into the button, and the button will hold that code for you. So in this demo, I've just done a few things here that are aligned to some quick menu options. But as I said, if you wanted to come up here and, for instance, go across and we wanted to add a Susan, we can copy Python for Docker, click that here, add from clipboard, and then we can say create monkey. Okay, what we can do is add the button here, so we can just add a cube button for now and select that. That will be our icon that you see within this panel. And then what we want to do here is click on show in all workspaces and bind to current. What this does is when you're binding a button, you're binding it to a layout. So now if I quickly go across to sculpting, you'll see the Docker doesn't have any buttons because none have been binded to this form of view. So if I go back to layout, you'll see we have the buttons that are binded to layout. You can bind a button to every single view layer if it's something that you feel is applicable for all of your different views, or you can customize this Docker to suit your given layout view that you're looking at your scene in. So if we go to the shader, I have a few selected already, and as you can see, these only show within the shading viewport. So if I go back to layout, Now you can run this action from here, and you can delete the action from here, and this is your code here. What it can do is it can take multiple lines of code and it will insert them as one given line. You can't put multiple lines of code in here, so whenever you are copying, say if you was to copy a multi-line, you need to add from clipboard. Add an action to this workspace. We'll add a blank action again to the given workspace, and it will bind it automatically without you having to tick here and then click on bind to current workspace. A blank allows you to insert your own line of code. As I've mentioned before, you can only do single lines. So if you just have a simple BPY construction code, then when you put that in there, you'll only need one line. If, however, you do use multiple lines, it's always best to add from clipboard, and that will then generate the multiple lines into a single line code for you. And as I said, you can then change the name and also the icon that sits here in the panel, so you can quickly adjust to see what ones are managing what codes. Okay, so if I now go back over to the button, as I said before, we have a code here which I've generated for generating a Susan, which you just saw that we added, and there you can see that it has brought a Susan into the scene without having to go up to the add menu mesh Susan. And next one is just to generate 10 random cubes, which is another code variation. I can delete that. And then we have some other stuff just like solo in the object. So now you can see in the viewport, it solos to this object here. Now these are all codes that you can write down yourself and then copy into the Docker as a button, and they will stay there. Docker also has the ability to work with text files. One thing worth noting is when you're working with a given text file like this, if I now click this, as you can see I have the generated objects. I'm just going to delete these from the scene. But what this allows you to do is when you're creating a blank button, we can come in here and I can just say add cubes text. And then we have a button generated up here for add cubes. And then what we can do is use a text file. So we can click onto the text file now, and now when I run this, it's going to generate from this code here. Keep in mind, if you do export this as a JSON file to load into another scene or into a different version of Blender or on a different computer, your code will not go with you. So this code is unique to this blend file, and that text file is unique to this blend file. Unless you added this to a different Blender version, this button would no longer generate anything. It would try and look for a text field that doesn't exist, sorry, a text file that doesn't exist in another version of Blender or another file of Blender. So this is good for situations where you may have a file that you're using lots of coding within text files and you just want quick ways to generate them without having to come down and run and switch between them. And then you can export that as a completely different action list for your Docker, and therefore you can import that into the given file whenever needed. So I'm just going to change that, and I will just remove the action here. So I'm going to remove this add cubes text. What we can do, as I mentioned before, is when we copy this, we can come up to add clipboard, and that will then generate that code for us. I'm going to bind to the current scene. I'm just going to call this add cubes, and there we go. We can come back up here and I'll just delete all these cubes quickly, and that one, and then we can add the cubes, and that's copied this text code into a button shortcut. So now when we export this, we're not reliant on the given text file. As I said, the text file resides there for your ability to be able to manually run your text files as codes from buttons inside of the Docker. But when you're exporting, it's best to, if you possible, copy and paste the clipboard, and then the button will contain within the JSON file the code. So when you're importing that into another blend file, you're not reliant on that blend file having the text field with the code inside it. So yeah, this is the quick overview. As I say, if we go into the shading editor here. I've added a couple of quick shader options here. One will just switch through the shading type. So as you can see, we cycle through. And again, the next one will just cycle through the different types of HDRs within this area. So these are completely customizable for your liking and your needs for any of your layouts that you want. You can have a button that's binding across all, as I mentioned before. And this is really good, I think, for people that like to vibe code or use ChatGPT maybe to generate some code that helps them apply something to a mesh. So if, for instance, you decided that you wanted to add some code into the file that will segment the object, so if we right click and we went into if we tab and go in here and then subdivide, maybe you could generate some code that does that for you if you're finding you're utilizing that feature on many of your working files. Then we can use ChatGPT to generate the code and then paste that in to here as a button, and then you wouldn't have to manually repeat that task. You could just click the button to do that. Yeah, so as I mentioned, if we go into this object here, we can see it's not been subdivided. What we could do is, if you had a code that is used to subdivide, we could add this as a button. So we can click this, copy over here, add to clipboard, and we've just pasted a new action, subdiv. Just going to pick an object icon. So again, I'm going to go to the cube. You could change it to something else more appropriate, but for now we can just change it to the cube. Now we have this code here, which we are running as a button. And as I say, if I click on there now and I tab, you can see we've subdivided by, I think it's set to 3 cuts. As you can see, we're running this as a button, but if we wanted to run this as the given text file in here, one of the things we can do is go back, choose a subdivision. So now this button is going to be using this text file. And we could change this to 6. So when we come out of the option here and click on this object and subdivide, as you see, we now have 6 subdivisions. So this is one of the benefits that can be useful when using a text editor. You're able to go in and change requirements more efficiently than you can do for, say, a single line item here, which is just generated to export the code and be used within other files. So this was the Docker layout add-on for Blender overview. As I say, we will ship the add-on with the demo buttons included, so you can just see how these are set up and have something to import.